Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this show without the express written consent of the Financial Guys, LLC is strictly prohibited.
Securities offered through Peak Broker Services, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Independent Solutions Wealth Management or Blackridge Asset Management. Financial Guys, Independent Solutions, and Blackridge Asset Management are not an affiliate of Peak Broker Services, Inc.
Welcome to TFG Truth. I'm Mike Hayflick, along with my partner and co-host Mike Sparazza, where each and every week, folks, we report facts, expose hypocrisy, and espouse common sense. We have an outstanding guest coming on, Congressman Byron Donalds. He's down in the District 19 in Southwest Florida. Beautiful place to serve. I'm definitely going to joke with him about that because here we are in New York as we head into wintertime. And when he goes from Washington, D.C. down to his home base, so to speak, how outrageously beautiful it is. It's tropical. It's gorgeous. So we're going to talk to Byron Donalds. Mike, I know we're going to talk to him a little bit about his appearances on committee in front of some energy leaders. We're going to talk a little bit about COVID and the vaccine mandates and how Florida and New York have been handled so far differently. And also the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. I mean, as we sit here right now, they're in deliberations, the jury, and there's intimidation going on, right? They're intimidating. This is not a new trick, folks. This is what happens when the people on the left or the right are trying to get a certain verdict. They intimidate jurors, right? And that's what's happening right now. So we're going to get Congressman Byron Donalds' thoughts on all of this.
And I'm going to be honest, for our legal system, if you know, and just based again on the facts. I mean, you look at a couple days ago when they were doing some of the prosecution was, you know, interviewing witnesses, and you know, the prosecution's asking questions like with Rittenhouse's, why were you there? Well, I'm protecting my community. It's not your community. And he goes, well, my father lives there.
His dad lives there.
So it is your community, right? So, I mean, this is the type of stuff that, I mean, come on, you know, everything the prosecution brought, you know, in a lot of these trials, you're like, wow, I could see it that way, or, oh, it could go the other way. This one, it seems pretty cut and dry, black and white, right? Like, yeah, he was there for a reason.
Right.
Yes, he was attacked, right? There's video showing that.
Yep.
The one gun charge was that his rifle was too long. Right. It wasn't. Yep. They measured it, and it wasn't.
Right.
That he was too young to have a gun in that state. He wasn't. You're allowed to be 17. I mean, everything that the prosecution brought was just incorrect.
Yeah.
And you hope that the jury makes the final verdict on the truth and the fact, not, oh my God, is Kenosha going to burn again? Because that is not the way to do a trial and get a verdict.
Yeah, facts don't matter, right?
Yeah.
Their initiatives matter. Their tendencies matter. They're keeping this narrative going and going and going. What about the guy? So the one guy that got shot, he got shot in the arm. He actually testified. He said, so wait, so you had your hands up and Kyle Rittenhouse was not ready to shoot you. And he says, no. He goes, but when you pulled your gun and faced him, that's when he shot you, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Is that guy going to get prosecuted? Isn't that attempted murder?
And
you're pulling a gun to go shoot a guy wasn't he laying on the ground at that time?
Yeah.
So,
and even worse, how about the fact they're making out the one of which that died from the gunshot wound from Kyle Rittenhouse, they're making out to be him some civil rights hero.
I know.
He was a child rapist.
I know.
I mean,
right? Wasn't he just out of prison?
Yes.
Out
for
custody?
sexually assaulting children. I mean, come on, you can't make this stuff up. And that's, to go back to our guest today, that's what makes him so amazing. My wife and I, she always tells me, you got to calm down when you start yelling. But like, I don't know how these guys, like a Byron Donalds or a Ron DeSantis or these people can do this and do it. And like we'll show in clips with him, he's so cool, calm, collected. It drives me nuts. I get hot and bothered, and I don't even have to deal with it.
I know, and he's making a living doing it. Wait until you hear from Congressman Byron Donalds, folks. You have to stay tuned. Welcome to TFG Truth. We will be right back. Again, Congressman Byron Donalds coming up. All right, folks, welcome back to TFG Truth. We are now joined by Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds represents District 19 in Southwest Florida. This district includes, if you don't know, folks, Fort Myers, Naples, gorgeous beaches, Marco Island. Byron, I have to say, you couldn't have picked a more beautiful place to represent. Not to mention you have Governor Ron DeSantis and now Florida resident Donald Trump. Welcome to TFG Truth, and thank you so much for joining us.
Listen, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's just a gorgeous place. I know you grew up in Brooklyn, is that right?
Yeah, born and raised, Brooklyn, New York.
Wow, and then you end up going to college down in Florida and ended up saying, yeah, this place doesn't suck. I mean,
look, the decision really was like, I kind of liked having wide open space. Anybody that's lived in New York, you understand that, wide open spaces is not a thing that comes with the territory.
No.
So for me, I got to Florida and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to stay. Yeah. It was really that simple.
Well, 75 or 80 degrees in November, December, and January doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, that's great stuff too.
Yeah. So to leave Washington, D.C. and go back to Southwest Florida, pretty cool. I like it. So again, thanks for joining us. We want to get your comments on some of the recent activity in Congress, including that impassioned speech that you had. I mean, you get so limited time when you get the, your turn, I guess. But on October 28th in front of oil industry leaders, we want to get to that because that was just, I think that just, you hit it out of the park essentially. And anyone else who felt like, we believe in energy and the way energy is delivered, we were all on board with you. Can you give us your thoughts, though, first on vaccine mandates? I mean, you faced off with Chris Cuomo on July 26th, and he really tried to bait you into, your own vaccine status, and he really tried to make you feel bad and come up with some really good clips so his audience could say, wow, Chris, look what you did. Look what you did to Byron Donalds. And you just didn't let it happen. And I just thought it was terrific. But can you give us your thoughts on how Florida has handled vaccine mandates versus, I guess, the rest of the country, essentially?
Well, look, Florida, really since about last June, we've been handling this situation right when it comes to COVID-19 in general. We decided that it wasn't in the best interest of our state and the people to just lock everybody down and keep them under this extended emergency lockdown scenario, which was going to, one, cripple our economy, and two, put our people in a spot where they weren't going to be able to literally see their families and friends and enjoy their life. Mm-hmm. We also understood that COVID-19, although it is, it is very harmful to people who have health issues in particular. The reality is that if you are largely a healthy individual, the mortality rates associated with COVID-19 are actually quite low. They're very, very low, especially when you're younger than the age of 55. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we looked at. We looked at data. We didn't look at politics. Unfortunately, a lot of blue states, the first thing they looked at was politics because it was the middle of the presidential cycle. And the thing they were trying to run around saying is that Donald Trump didn't have a plan, when in reality, the fact that we have vaccines as quickly as we have them, the fact that there was all of the PPE for our hospital system, which frankly was not there, and the Chinese were trying to hoard, the fact that our supply chain did not implode, frankly, when Donald Trump was president of the United States, demonstrated that he had a plan. He had multiple plans. He was working those plans. And that's why our country didn't just go into complete free fall and collapse while he was president of the United States.
And Congressman, I guess on the flip side now, because you would think, and to be honest with you, I was wrong. I thought that once Joe Biden got into office, this would not necessarily go away, but the media would stop pushing it 24/7, 365. And to be honest with you, they haven't, right? They're still pushing it. Jen Psaki just yesterday asking what supply chain problems, and everything's back to COVID again. So when are they going to stop talking about it, or when are they going to just let the people live the way they need to live, and like you said, do things smartly, but also let people run their lives, let businesses run their businesses? When does that happen? Because they haven't stopped, and it doesn't seem like they're going to stop anytime soon.
No, they're not going to, because if you stop, then they have to take responsibility for their unmitigated disaster with respect to domestic and foreign policy. Mm-hmm. So it's easier for them to put it off on COVID as opposed to having to take responsibility for what they've done. People got to remember, the 2020 presidential election had nothing to do with Democrat policy. Mm-hmm. It was all about Donald Trump and them having to restore our democracy or save our democracy and have faith in our institutions and whatever nonsense that they spewed. And it was about him not having a plan on COVID-19. That was the 2020 presidential election. No more, no less. Joe Biden didn't run on policies. Joe Biden was barely to be seen.
Yeah, I know,
so
right.
So this is what people are waking up to now in America. They're like, oh my gosh, we elected a man who's an incompetent, who doesn't know what he's doing. And when he's supposed to have a plan on COVID, the reality is all he's doing is executing the Trump plan, and he's doing a bad job at that. So that's why he has to show he's doing something. That's why he jumps to these vaccine mandates, which are unconstitutional, by the way. And so I think what the Fifth Circuit just did is more to come. I was actually telling the SBA administrator, because she was all like, well, we're looking forward to the vaccine mandate to help get small businesses back on their feet. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Small business owners already have a problem finding employees. These vaccine mandates are only going to make it harder for them to find employees, which is going to further hurt our economy. But when you have somebody that doesn't know economics, but he's quote unquote in charge, this is what happens.
Yeah. And I think the worst part, Congressman, is it seems like it's not just him that doesn't know economics. His whole cabinet and his whole party don't know economics, right? You hear these people, and then Joe will tell you, well, you guys don't understand supply chain. No. We do. You don't. And that's why we keep having gas at, I was down in Florida last week. I was paying almost $4 a gallon. That's worse than New York right now. And I can't believe that all over the country, I saw California, they were almost at $7 a gallon. Like, that's a major problem. They don't understand the economics.
No, they don't. And because they don't talk to anybody about the economics, they always talk about what their plans are, their utopian vision. Pelosi's always talking about she's doing everything for the children, even though, outside of her own grandchildren, I can't remember the last time she's actually talked to a child. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And so this is what you have up here on Capitol Hill. These bills that they've been pushing through this Congress, there's no debate on these bills. They come out of Pelosi's office. They drop in some rules. The Rules Committee is the size of like somebody's living room. I'm not kidding. That's how small the Rules Committee is. And so you're sitting in somebody's living room. They got cameras all over the place. The votes are already preordained, no matter what the members from the different ranking members on the Republican side actually tell the Rules Committee about these bills. They vote them off there. They go to the floor. They vote them off the floor. There's no debate in Washington, D.C. about these ideas, these quote-unquote bills, whatever Joe Biden's plan is, which frankly isn't a plan.
Yeah.
If anything, what they're really doing is they are moving our economy at warp speed into second position behind the Chinese.
Right. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds with us right now. You mentioned our current president. We had the opportunity and the privilege to interview Rudy Giuliani, and boy, did he have some choice words for our current president. You layer on the cognitive issues that he clearly has. I don't think anyone could dispute it. Some people don't want to admit to it, but you can't dispute he's having cognitive issues and declining health. But you layer that on with his tendency to want to be corrupt and to be a liar. What a recipe for disaster. I often say, though, Congressman, that it's not so much ignorance, it's really intent. This is the intent of the left. People like Charles Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and that whole machine. I don't think they're as dumb as we think. I think that they just don't care about the economics of it. They don't care.
Or the people of their country.
They don't care. Like you said, there's this utopia that they wish to create, even though it'll never happen. And as long as they're at the top, they're the elites, the sophisticated, they're going to be just happy as a pig in mud.
I totally agree. I was in Palm Beach a couple days ago, and I was explaining to this group that they're doing this on purpose. Listen, when Afghanistan blew up, one of the first things I did is we had a hearing where it was a closed hearing with the Inspector General from Afghanistan. And so one of the first things that we did is that we went and, we talked to him. He said, hey, there's this, he goes, we did a classified report. And I asked him in this hearing, I said, when you guys saw what was happening to the Afghani forces, did you alert the White House, Department of State, and Department of Defense? He goes, yes, we absolutely did. We sent them a red letter notice. And so I'm like, well, did they read it? And he was like, they typically read all of our red letter notices, so I would assume they read this one. So I go to D.C. just to read the classified report. If anybody who read that report knows full well what would have happened in Afghanistan. There's no possible way that Joe Biden, with all the information that comes to the White House, did not know what was going to happen in Afghanistan. So the reality is he did it on purpose. because he knew what was going to happen and he did it anyway. Mm-hmm. This is the idiocy that leads the nation right now. And so, in my view, they know exactly what they want to do. When they talk about fundamental transformation of our economy, they're not joking around. Nope. They're not thinking that they're going to make things better. They're doing it on purpose because they would rather be in charge while frankly, for lack of a better phrase, Rome burns. It goes back to the line Margaret Thatcher said in the British Parliament. They would rather the poor be poorer so the rich are less rich. And that is what the Democrat Party is about today in America. And it's sad for our country because if left alone, our country produces more wealth and provides more services and provides more everything than any other country on the face of the earth.
And Congressman, before Mike plays the clip with you speaking with the energy leaders, but it's funny you say that about the Afghanistan situation because we've had a few others on, like Sheriff Donalds down in Arizona, telling us about we would love to have conversations to give our experiences and to give the administration what we see so we can help fix these situations, and they don't listen. I mean, he's told the Southwest or the Arizona border, he has talked to them or tried to talk to them numerous times, and they won't even have a conversation. And his point is, look, we have drugs coming up, we have murders coming up, we have people getting away and not being, stopped at the border. He's like, it's a mess down here. Nobody wants to listen to us.
Listen, absolutely right. I've been to the border twice. I know Kamala Harris was there for about 2 hours. She was basically at the tarmac, and then she got on the plane again and went to California. Right. Here's the deal. Anybody looking at the border situation, it's like a game of Risk. The game of global domination, right? Mm-hmm. What the drug cartels know is that if they move young children across our border, Border Patrol is going to intercept the children. Because if they don't intercept those children, the children will die in the deserts surrounding the border in southern Texas, southern Arizona. Mm-hmm. They will die. Yeah. So they intercept the kids. The border agents the cartel sees the border agents intercept the children. Once they do that, they then move all the fentanyl, the cocaine, and all that stuff across our border. This is big business to the drug cartels. So that's why what Joe Biden is doing by not enforcing our border, and what their plan is in this infrastructure bill is to actually deconstruct the border wall. Like, this is one of the quiet plans they're talking about, is to pay contractors to actually take it down. What you're going to do is empower the drug cartels to make billions of dollars. So they always talk about what the root causes are. The root cause is that the cartel's making money. Because if the cartel wasn't making money, allowing people to be trafficked across our border, they wouldn't allow it to happen. Because the drug cartel's number one mission, their number one business, are drugs. Anything that messes that up, they're not going to do. But because Joe Biden doesn't enforce our borders and he doesn't take it seriously and he wants a wide open border, let me say this very clearly. He wants a wide open border. Because that's what he wants and his party wants, the drug cartels are going to make billions of dollars. Children are being trafficked. There are young girls who are being sold into sex slavery. All of this is happening because Joe Biden is committed to his vision, which is why it's utopia and it's not reality. It's idiocy. It's not compassionate.
And by the way, drug cartel leaders are very smart folks. They're not dummies, like contrary to popular belief. They're very smart, and they know what they can accomplish, and they know what they want to accomplish.
And they're vicious. I mean, they know exactly what their end goal is, and then that's what you just said, Congressman, to be enriched. And it's at anyone else's cost. What's really shameful is that this Biden administration does not seek out the help of people like Sheriff Mark Donalds and all the other experts and specialists. I mean, it sounds like you could go down to that border and clean that entire thing up. What you just said to our audience and to us is exactly what would need to happen. Don't get baited into the, they're letting a few children out, and don't take your eyes off of the drug cartel trying to bring the fentanyl in. I mean, you just laid it out how it could be fixed. Or they just don't want it fixed.
Or you just finish the wall and close the border off, like we've talked about.
Absolutely.
like Donald Trump talked about. And that's why I do believe in that, because and Congressman, you said you've been down there. That's got to be one of the only ways to get it done, right? Have a wall and have some sort of security down there. You can't do what you're doing now.
Listen, most Americans, when they hear border wall, a lot of them, to be honest, think that there is no wall that exists. That's not true. The border wall is in pieces. So we have like a section of wall, maybe 1/8 of a mile, and then you have a gap in the wall for maybe 600 to 800 feet. and then more wall. Where in the world do we even do that? If the Chinese, when they built the Great Wall of China, built that wall the way we built the southern border wall, they would have been overrun. That's what would have happened. They'd have been overrun.
Yeah.
So the reality is that Border Patrol is the one who's been asking for this wall for 30 years. All Donald Trump did, and he's right to do it, but what Donald Trump did was listen to border agents and say, oh, man, this is a problem. Let's build the wall. They've been asking for it for 30 years because they're the ones that are on the front lines. They know that the border wall will help them keep the entire place enforced. But because the Democrats are so committed to illegal immigration, they simply do not want to secure the southern border.
Yeah.
They want to take it down, as a matter of fact. Listen, there was a provision in one of these reconciliation bills early on that would have put a cap on asylum applications. The Squad and the Progressive Caucus lost their minds. They went berserk. It almost killed the deal. Why? Because we were going to put a cap on the number of asylum claims we allowed into the United States. They don't want a cap. They want it to be open-ended. And that's just ridiculous.
And guess what? I'll bet that there are no gaps in Nancy Pelosi's walls. All the walls she has around her properties, and honestly, Joe Biden's private residence. I bet there are no gaps, no holes in their walls.
Listen, I tell people all the time. Last one I'll make on this. I tell people all the time. You think that we don't believe in walls in our country? Go try to get into the White House. See what happens to you.
You got it.
Go try it. See what happens.
So recently you were in committee and you had these words to energy leaders. I'm going to play this clip. I just think I want to set this up for our audience, though. You basically listen to some of your colleagues berate and belittle these energy leaders. And I think honestly, it shows your character. It shows how in tune you are, the way you defended what these energy leaders have done for all of us. So I'm just going to play this for you, and I want your comments.
First of all, to the witnesses, the leaders of Exxon, Chevron, BP, Shell, I know that the climate activists in Twitter world, which Dave Chappelle says doesn't exist, and he's right because it's just people who have nothing better to do but type on their keyboards, and we do it too here in Congress. But let's be very clear, you need an apology because what I witnessed today was just rank intimidation by the chair of this committee. Trying to get you to pledge on what you're going to spend your money on is a gross violation of the First Amendment. And just because we're members of Congress and we got microphones and we pass laws does not mean that we also have the ability to infringe on your ability to organize, whether it's API or anybody else, or what you choose to spend your money on. It is disgusting.
I'm going to stop it right there, Congressman. You went on further. Folks, if you haven't heard that clip, you've got to hear this because, honestly, Mike and I, obviously, we talk a lot about the things going on, and we love to do this podcast. And we see you as, like, an absolute up-and-coming, and you're currently a star, a conservative superstar. And to hear you do that in front of your colleagues, my first question is, how do you even compose yourself when you're around these crazies? Like, they literally are crazy, some of the people that you have to work with and listen to. But, I mean, it was just outstanding. What kind of feedback did you get from some of your colleagues on the conservative side versus maybe the left side, the liberal side?
I mean, for the Republicans and the conservatives, they were like, hell yeah, thanks for saying that, because this is nuts.
Oh, it had to be
honestly,
awesome.
when I go into these meetings, I'm typically calm. I talk to everybody, Republican, Democrat, whatever. Look, in politics, it's hand-to-hand combat. You know what I mean? I mean, the combat's even a strong word. It's just like, look, it's like being on a football field. It's like being on a basketball court. I want to win. You want to win. We're on opposing sides. We're going to fight it out. You might catch an elbow every now and again.
Sure.
These things happen. But when the game is over, the game is over. And then I can sit back, shake your hand, talk to you as a human being. So typically that's how I operate. I talk to everybody. If you're a radical leftist, I'll still talk to you. You're still a human being. You're still an American, even though your ideas are crazy. I'll still talk to you. But in these committees, when they go off the deep end like that, like I'm typically calm and then I hear them talking and I'm like, what did I just hear? Like, are they nuts?
Honestly, I don't know how you do it.
No, literally, that's what happens. And so we start looking at each other like, what is this? And so, everybody kind of, if you don't remember the McCarthy era of politics, McCarthyism, where everything was, a congressional hearing about communism and people invading the country, so on and so forth, you would have sworn we're back to the McCarthyism era in Congress, where if you don't go along with climate change, quote unquote, you now have to basically pledge your allegiance to the science and to the Democrat Party. You're not allowed to disagree. You're not allowed to spend money in a political activity against what the Democrats want to do. Listen, if that's what you choose to do, you're an American. You're allowed to spend your money the way you see fit to accomplish whatever you think is necessary to pursue your happiness. That's the very bedrock of the Declaration of Independence. You're allowed to do that, and government is not allowed to coerce you. So when you have the chairwoman of a committee literally trying to intimidate these witnesses, these CEOs that keep the lights on in this place, it's disgusting to me. So I responded. Well, I reacted. And so she rolled her eyes. She was not happy with me, but I don't care. Well, because the truth is that our country cannot survive if people have to bend the knee to whoever's in charge politically.
Right.
That's not what our country is based upon.
And the very people they say they're trying to help would be the worst stricken by energy crises, right? If the neighborhoods across the entire country suddenly had no power, no heat, no furnaces working, no washers and dryers working, they would be the ones that are suffering the most. So yeah, it's just so disingenuous.
And I know we're up against.
Listen, man. Okay. One quick thing I'll say. Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi will not have a problem heating their homes because I'm quite sure they have a solar panel array that Paul built with all the money that he's made over the years. And God bless them. I don't care. Right. Do you? But the truth of the matter is that if you don't have clean and consistent energy, if you don't have cheap and consistent energy, poor people will suffer. 100% full stop.
No doubt.
And Congressman, I think this leads into our next topic. Before we let you go, I just wanted to jump into the Rittenhouse trial because I think both of these things we're talking about, the energy crisis, the Rittenhouse trial, it's almost like that side, the Pelosi's, the Schumers, of course, AOC and the squad, they're full of good information. It seems like they don't look at any data or facts, and we can go into COVID on this too, right? Every piece of data in this Rittenhouse trial, if you watched it, if you looked at it, shows, wait a minute, this is not a race situation, right? This is not a, even a question of self-defense. It was self-defense. Even the witnesses for the prosecution made it out that it was a self-defense case, right? So and go with the energy too, right? The gas prices are skyrocketing. You can't fly planes on solar energy or electric, right? Why do they not? And why do they not look at these things? And again, is it intent? Are they just plain out unintelligent? I mean, what is it?
Oh, no, it's intent. I'm firmly committed that they're trying to accomplish their policy agenda, whether it's cultural, whether it's the political culture wars we're in, whether it's economic. They're committed to accomplishing their agenda, and anything that needs to be used to accomplish the agenda will be used. That is this Kyle Rittenhouse situation. Now, look, I've been talking with a lot of people about this. I got friends who are like, man, what's he doing with an AR-15 in Kenosha? You shouldn't even be there. Where is your mom? Where's your dad? Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. People have these questions. Here's the reality. The reality is that the prosecution, frankly, has completely overcharged the situation because they're responding to the politics that were set by a narrative from big media and from the Democrats. And the narrative that they wanted to set in 2020 is that America is irredeemably racist because of Donald Trump, and that's why we need Joe Biden to be president. That was the narrative. That's what they tried to set out and set in stone. And so it didn't matter what the story was, you were going to be used to push that narrative. Kyle Rittenhouse falls into that category. You got a 17-year-old white kid in Kenosha where they're having riots associated with the thing with Jacob Blake, and things are burning, and he's running down the street with an AR-15. That right there, the media took that and ran with it. They don't care about the facts. What they care about is the narrative. What they care about is the agenda. And so the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, the reason why this is now the cause celeb, has nothing really to do with Kyle Rittenhouse or the three gentlemen that he shot, the two that died and the other one that shot got his arm blown off. What it was about is accomplishing establishing their narrative. Period. And so this is what happens in our country, which is terrible, because our justice system cannot be a quasi-political system. Because if that's what it's going to be, then people don't have faith in criminal justice. And if people don't have faith in criminal justice or any other institution because it's used for political means, then our country falls apart. But they don't care about that. They care about their agenda.
And Congressman, last quick thing. I guess you just brought up to accomplish their agenda. We all know what the agenda is, but at the end of the day, do these people actually want to live in a world like that too? Like, that's what I'm confused. And you're in Congress, so you talk to these folks. But that agenda of you can't say anything that could possibly offend somebody, right? You can't even walk out of your house without worrying about, am I doing something wrong? Who wants to live in that world? Who wants to live in a world where gas is $7? Who wants to live in a world where you can't afford things or provide for your family? Why is that agenda something that they're striving for? It's hard for me to comprehend.
Even in communist Russia, the people in the Socialist Party, they did well while everybody suffered. Did they like it 100%? Probably not if you got them one-on-one, but they were doing far better than everybody else. And they were doing better, not based upon merit, not based upon intelligence, not based upon ingenuity. They were doing better because of loyalty to the party. That was what happened in Socialist Russia. That's Communist Russia, excuse me. Frankly, that's what goes on in the Communist Chinese Party today. It's not about your ingenuity or ability or God-given talent or whatever the case might be. It's about your loyalty to the party. And there's always going to be people amongst us in any society where they will take that as opposed to having to cut their teeth and be successful on their own. And that's what we're battling against.
Congressman Byron Donalds, he represents District 19 in Southwest Florida, but he actually, in my opinion, represents all of us, folks. All of us who are sort of, I think, common sense minded. We just want to be left alone. We want freedom and liberty to prevail. And I can tell Byron Donalds believes that. And thank you, honestly, thank you so much for every day stepping up for all of us, Mr. Donalds. And Congressman, I hope you have a great day. We're going to leave it right there. Hopefully this isn't our last time to be able to speak to you.
Oh, man, I'd love to come back. Next time we got to work out this video thing. But that's on my end. But thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much. All right. So, folks, you know, this is a superstar. He's not an upcoming. I shouldn't have even said he's an upcoming superstar. He is a superstar already. Just super bright, articulate, composed, passionate. I mean, you name it. This guy, Byron Donalds, has it all. You've got to get online and see the clips of him. One of the things I couldn't help but think, you know, this whole idea of intent, right? Yeah. Everything he sees, it's all about intent. This isn't ignorance, folks. This is the intent of the left to create this division, right? You've said it. You know, President Biden, he ran on unity, bringing people together. We got to get nasty orange man Trump out. You know, look what he's done. All this discontent and violence and rioting. Joe's going to bring it all together. Has he brought it together, in your opinion?
No, and wait till this trial, and this may air after the verdict because they're in deliberation right now. But if this doesn't go the way that CNN or MSNBC want it to go, I believe we're going to have another major issue coming out here. And again, what's so frustrating for me is these people, they push this narrative, and again, it's doing a disservice to the communities they say they're trying to help. Right. Pushing on CNN and MSNBC that every white person is racist that doesn't agree with, you know, convicting this kid is our favorite Joy Reid, right? She's a doozy, that one. She every day she cannot be on the air without pushing racism towards all white folks, right? And it's unbelievable. And it's, again, it's creating more racism.
Absolutely.
It's creating more hatred. It's creating more dissension in our country. And I thought, based on what they ran on over there, him and Kamala, this would all have gone away. I thought Trump was the reason that everybody was so racist in our country and everybody hated each other in our country. It was all Trump's fault. Well, it's not going anywhere.
Right.
It hasn't gone anywhere.
And race, I mean, race has always been an issue, but over the last several decades, many decades, there's been so much improvement in that. And to the point where I think I grew up where, you know, I'm like growing up in, like, let's say the 70s, 80s. I'm a child in the 70s, 80s. I really didn't think much about race. Like I saw people and I saw ability and talent and I you know, I just never felt like I worried about it. Like it just wasn't something I worried about. I didn't wake up thinking that way.
But that's most people. Right. So that's anybody. Are there racists out there? Of course there are. Are there bad people out there? Of course there are. We always say this. Are there doctors that overprescribe medication? Of course there are.
Sure.
Are there financial planners that steal people's money? Of course there are. But the greater majority, are there cops that do things poorly? Of course there are. But the greater majority of all these groups are good people. America is not 99.9% racist like you would think if you watch TV. It's just not the case.
No,
it's
but
just
they're
not
turning.
even close.
You said it. They're turning people into having more racist sort of tendencies, or they're just trying to turn people to say, "Oh, well, I don't want to approach these folks over here because I don't want them to think I'm racist, or I don't want them to be afraid of me because of my skin color, my gender." So it's creating disunity. Exactly what
on
Joe
both
Biden
sides,
said.
by the way, on both sides, left and right, it's creating issues. Right?
Absolutely, and that's divide and conquer. That's their goal.
Yep.
So again, a huge thank you to Congressman Byron Donalds, folks. We've had some really outstanding guests. Mike, thanks to you. To your credit, you have a really great way about you to get these types of guests, folks, and that's what we're all about. We're about talking to like we are right now and bantering, and we enjoy this. And we're pretty impassioned ourselves, but getting the people who are in the know, I mean, like Congressman Byron Donalds, I mean, that's what our goal is, to keep bringing out great guests so you can get it right from the people on the front lines. And
real quick, on just to tease next week on our Thanksgiving week guest here, Tony Kinnett. He is a critical race theory expert. He's a professor. He will be on with us. He's been on Fox News a few times now and some other major media outlets talking about this idea of critical race theory, and it's not just like Joy Reid says, not being taught in schools. And he's going to give us a real great insight on that. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 1619 Project founder claiming that teachers across the country are having mock slave auctions in class.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. Yeah. Thanks again for tuning in, folks. And you can find all of our previous podcasts, as well as the Financial Guys, Mike Lomas and Glenn Wiggles podcasts online. Have a great week. We will be back.